in Ferdinand's time, there was a lot of controversies with the FA between FA and ManU. So it was a lot, but they kept on doing that. Unfortunately for them, when Rio was found guilty, they dropped and they couldn't even sign him. They couldn't play him again. So it was
Yeah.
quite unfair. So clubs actually pay. They suffer, especially if you're the only great player that they have.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Shaft podcast. On this episode, the topic is quite interesting because for a football personality who has been in the news for so many different things, most of them have been good, some of them speculative critiques as well. The biggest name when it comes to legal issues in recent days in the sporting world has been Paul Pogba, former World Cup winner, once in a while, was one time ago the most expensive player in the world. There's been some legal issues around him. We've heard he was banned 4 years. Now we hear that the ban has been reduced. And a lot of us try to understand what is really happening. Why are some of these issues changing? Which bodies are making these decisions as well? And so with me on this episode is Pauline Balzer, popularly known as Paula by a lot of debaters across the continent, who is a sports lawyer and also a debater, with me here to dissect really the issues around Paul Pogba's legal struggles, to really get to understand where the source has been and what events have led to this point. So, welcome to the Shafts podcast, Pauline, and it's been a while. How have
Thank
you been?
I'm happy to be here too.
Yeah. Let's get right into it. So, first, I just want to get an understanding what happened for us to get to this point, because it's like it's the ending part that's getting the big media splashes, and I try to find out what has been happening with Paul Pogba, and it looks like I would need to go way back to read articles from years ago to understand exactly what has been happening. So you within the sporting legal space who has followed this issue throughout, what has happened over the years, and why are we at the point that we are with Paul Pogba getting a reduction in his sentence?
Okay, so well, it's something that started last year in September 2023, and it being Pogba, it's even more interesting because we know he's been a name being spoken everywhere in the football field. And to cut the story short and to go into the point, Pogba was called out for a doping test because oftentimes footballers are subjected to doping test. That's the case of Rio Ferdinand. After the training, they were called up to do a test. Pogba's case, they called him to do a test, and Pogba actually attended the test. And while you do the test, you're supposed to give in at least more than two samples. That's sample A and sample B. And he did the test. He gave in his test, and they tested sample A, and it was positive for testosterone, and that's a prohibited substance under the anti-doping organization. And he's well aware to that fact. So everybody is well aware, like this is the most common prohibited substance, and
Yeah.
um it is it is a substance that you can actually just get from very random medicines, the random supplements. So Pogba's case, since he did not actually any enhancers for the he did not take any stimulation to get high levels of testosterone, and then he says he didn't do anything. However, doping agency is tribunal that he was found doping because even took in his sample, his second sample, for sample B and this, and to a different clinic at that, and they still found that it tested positive. So he maintained that he didn't actually try to stimulate or enhance his testosterone. And then he's like, the Italian anti-doping agency, the tribunal held that he was found guilty of doping and he was given the maximum sentence, which is 4 years back. And given Pogba's age, that means that's the end of his career, because by the time he comes back, he'll just maybe be and trying to keep fit or something like that, because football is is a bit age bad. So apart from the 4-year ban, he was given a fine of 5,000, I think, euros, 5,000 euros. Yes, so it's attracted the highest level of punishment because um when you're found intentionally taking up a substance that has your performance in sports doping ideally, depending on the circumstances, you will most likely be given that. Most times, people are given the highest fine. And the reason why that happens, like in Pogba's case, is basically to teach other athletes to listen, because some of them may intentionally or unintentionally enhance their hormones. And besides that, is that because anti-doping agencies are always a step or a half behind um, technology in doping. So that's why they have to really take the maximum punishment. And yeah.
But just running the story back a little bit, when because now we know there's been a reduction after the case was appealed. So I'm trying to understand what was the process in the lead up to the initial maximum punishment that was given. Was any of his legal defense that he used to get the appeal presented at the time? How was that defense accounted for in the ruling that gave him the 4-year ban? Because it's more like, was it that they didn't have that case at that point, or there was no consideration, or how do these cases get decided? Is the player's contention or opinion even listened to within these situations?
Okay, so for Pogba's case, the Italian tribunal of the anti-doping agency ruled against an authority 4-year ban. He said that he did not actually try to stimulate someone's or try to enhance his performance, and said that he was going to appeal. Now there is a time frame within which he's supposed to appeal. You understand? So he appealed within that time frame, because the appeal, I think, was in November or December. I can't remember the exact date. He appealed to CAS, and CAS has a tribunal that listens to specifically doping cases. So they have qualified, specialized people that are going to listen to the case, and then they listen to the evidences, examine the evidences and everything. So Pogba appealed to CAS, and he claimed, this is very something that people need to understand. There is when an athlete appeals and says they did not do it, they say they are not faulty at all. Understand? And then there is when they say they are at fault, but it's not an intentional fault. You understand? So in Pogba's
Yeah.
case, he said he was at fault, but he wasn't intentionally at fault, which led to his reduction. Ideally, that's a mitigating factor towards the punishment, the consequence that he already has. So in this case, he said that he was guilty, that he had the testosterone in his sample, but it wasn't necessarily his fault, because earlier on he was in Florida and they got treatment from a doctor. And something that I would say before I proceed, I think it's better for athletes to always try and seek medication from their own person whom they're actually sure understand what it means to be found doping or what doping is. Because in this case, Pogba's case, they assured him that the doctors treated so many high profile American athletes, so it's not going to be any issue with doping. And Pogba is given supplements that he took, and all of a sudden, after he has been told to do a test, they find that he's actually positive, testing positive for testosterone. And at the end of the day, it's his fault, because he actually asked and made sure that the doctor knows what he's doing. And the doctor said it. Or don't worry, this doctor actually knows about all this kind of stuff, so you don't have to worry about that. Unfortunately for him, he's found positive with the testosterone, and then Of course, the Italian agency gives him 4-year ban. So nothing like sports. You can't even be seen in a training ground or it's a stadium or anything.
Yeah.
Then appeals when he appeals, and that is his strongest defense. They're like, okay, that is fine. And they give him an 18 months ban. Of course, they also took off the what's it, the fine? I mean the ban. I mean the fine because I had a 5,000 fine for that. So I think it's a good thing for him. But looking at the age he's at, I feel like if he had something less than 12 months, it would have been the best. But Cass gave him what was the best. Good, and he has 30 days to appeal the same decision that was passed. I think 3rd October, if I recall very well. So the full judgment is not yet out, but basically these are like the core parts of the case when it was at CAS. So his 18 months have already started. And yeah, by next year, he should be able to find a club to play. Well,
Interesting. A few follow-ups on this one. Does this mean, because I'm still not clear, and I think a lot of people might be confused about this. Does this mean Pogba is guilty or innocent? Because it's more like he's somewhere in the middle between half guilty, half innocent. And I'm sure being a lawyer, you would know, for instance, if it's a criminal case, right? You think this person either gets a guilty or not guilty, either on his criminal record or not. Within that situation or from that example, would you say this is something that would be on Pogba's criminal record quotes for being guilty of doping or using a doping substance? Or is he considered innocent within the context of this new?
so I don't know the best way that I can be. Basically, to just put this in plain terms, he's actually guilty. Yeah. Well,
Okay.
all standards, he is guilty. This is why the perspective of doping comes in. Strict liability. The reason why it is strict liability, I mentioned about this a few days ago. The reason why it is strict liability because underdog is supposed to take care of your body. You're supposed to know what comes out and what gets out of your body. So you cannot come and say that I don't know what's inside my body. Understand? That's number one. Number two, the reason why liability is because if it is not strict liability, very many people are going to come up with excuses of my doctor prescribed this and I didn't know. You cannot punish me for my doctor's fault. Yet it's actually your fault. You know this medicine is entering my body. It can have an effect of stimulation, of enhancement of performance. That's basically in simple terms how it is. For Pogba's case, he's actually guilty. What they're doing is just they're being lenient because it's not his fault. You understand?
Okay.
It's not his fault that he's still without a fault, if it makes sense.
Okay.
Because it's not his fault that
Okay.
the supplements enhance his testosterone, and testosterone actually enhances your performance. And also the fact that I think the anti-doping agency think in their arguments or analysis, looking at his age, they'll be like, okay, this actually makes sense. Because I mean, in football, when you get older, it doesn't mean that your performance is going to be as good as when you're younger.
Yeah.
So that is it. For Pogba's case, they just read it because his whole idea, this is why I made it mention, I mentioned it earlier that he did not say that he's not, he said he was guilty. And there's no
Okay.
reason why he appealed. It was sure his lawyers made it known to him that he's not going to have that thing reduced. I mean, taken away. The best that he can have is a reduction, which is why he had to be very honest to all that and say that, you know what, I actually know that I shouldn't have taken this. But the reason why I'm not at fault is that my doctor, somebody that was claimed to be treating other people and everything, gave me the medicine and supplements. Okay. So he is guilty, but he just so that he can have a reduction of the ban, get back to play football. Because if the ban wasn't reduced, he would still not come back to football. He did. He would go to very small clubs just to play for it. and basically not even making his fullest of his capacities because of the nature of the of
Yeah.
how it would be paid or used, whatever. So to answer the question, he said without a fault.
Okay. One quick question on the substance that was found in his body during his urine during the tests, which is DHEA, also just a version of testosterone, like you mentioned. Why is testosterone a problem within the sports industry? Like, why is it a problem? Why can't people just use it if it makes them better, if it makes them stronger? Why has sports taken such an extreme stance against the use of such substances? And I think maybe understanding that would get us to appreciate why there is such extreme controversy around what happens to players when these substances are found in their bodies.
Okay, so briefly, generally, sports was an entertainment thing, yeah, and,
Okay.
and it gradually competition. And
Okay.
we'll go back to Greeks. They're the ones that practically invented doping, taking substances. They were taking local substances. I don't even know how they were doing this, taking local substances to enhance their performance. Because some sports, you cannot be able to perform very highly. For example, football, where you're old
Yeah.
or when you're aging. So that's how it starts. But the problem is that when they were doing that, other people were unable to access these more remedies that they were using, or the local doctors that were using, were at a
Yeah.
disadvantage. Because normally
Oh,
we have an average being, there is an average of the amount of hormone that you will have in your body that will help you to perform every kind of thing that you're supposed to as a normal human being. If you're going to all compete at that same average, competition is going to be fair. There is going to be equity. There is no equality and also be equity. So if somebody slightly takes something very little that can enhance performance by like 1%, they're going to be at a high advantage. You understand? Let me get an example of Usain Bolt. I think it was in 2008. Remember the year. His team's medals were taken away just because his teammates was found doping. Not even himself, but one of his teammates. And the reason is because even in athletics, if you're old, you're not going to be able to run very fast. So what you're going to have to do is enhance your testosterone to make you stronger, and then enhance the level at which you can um, keep your body cool and not to make it hot. Some people, for example, is this new substance is very beneficial for cyclists because it helps them to keep them. If they take that, that enhance their performance. Yeah. And when they enhance their performance, that means they're going to perform better, giving them a high advantage of winning than any other any other athletes or sportsmen, which is quite unfair because at the end of the day, all of them are competing for the same medals, same everything. So it's quite not
yeah.
fair, but it leads to enhance the performance. Yeah. Yet there are other people who can come in and step in their feet because at that point it starts giving grade or something because you're trying to be better than others. So apart from that,
Yeah.
when we look at the basis, some of these things are actually not very healthy for the body. You understand? Because like I've given you the brief history of how doping started. Some of these things were not actually very healthy for your body, but the fact that they were making them, yeah, you see the guy is going and the guy has some abnormal traits and everything. But in the end of the day, the person dies after a short time. So those are one of the reasons. Biggest reason why the anti-doping agency the World Anti-Doping Organization and
Yeah.
does against doping is basically to promote fair competition in sports. That is why even if they find is 0.0000001, of any enhancements in your body, you will actually given a consequences because it was advantage over other athletes. So it's very important that they do that, and that's why they do it. Now, looking at this is tends to perform better. It makes them people very strong. I haven't really had done a very extensive scientific research about it, but a lot of substances bring about enhanced testosterone in somebody's body. In Pogba's case, it was ADRV and so,
Yeah.
and those were components I was taking, which can also be found in other medicines, everything else. Yeah. And they are the most common in of testosterone. So even if there is a small drop of them, your testosterone levels up. And the agency that has levels which your testosterone should not exceed. And these levels are actually certified. Like it's after research, after they've consulted the doctors. So it's not just that they wake up and be
Yeah.
like, no, no, no. Yeah. So basically that's like the whole objective, the sole objective behind that.
Wonderful. Back to the issues of strict liability. I mean, I only heard about that legal concept when researching on this case, on this episode. And in my mind, it sounds like a very weird, quote unquote, ridiculous legal rule to make people responsible for almost everything, even the unknown, right? Because in Pogba's case, this reduction is clearly one that says we are reducing it because we know you didn't know that the substance contained testosterone boosters when you were taking them. Sure, but you are still liable and you are still responsible anyway. And the question I want to ask here is this concept of strict liability, is it a general legal principle that applies in other aspects of law beyond sports? Or is it a special principle that is co-opted specifically when it comes to these issues in sports? And why is it so?
So basically, strict liability is not a new idea in law. Yeah, it's not a new idea. It has been there, especially under tort and then some criminal offenses. Yeah. So for example, if we're going to look at sports, doping is like, let's say, criminal offense. Yeah. So strict liability means that whether anything, you'll still be at fault. So you don't have an excuse. It's just like traffic offenses. There's strict liability offenses. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I don't know how to best explain that. But strict liability, like I already said, means that you are at fault no matter what you want to say, no matter the idea. So one of the reasons under doping is because, like I already said, doping agencies are always going to be a step behind or have a step behind because
Okay.
technology is fast and everything. And I'm giving an example of a mostly it's something it's an antibiotic, but that thing has a doping effect. Yeah.
Okay.
So that shows you how much it evolves. So the idea of strict liability is that you will still be at fault, whether you're ignorant, whether you know about it. You
Yeah.
understand? And reason is because looking at it in simple terms, you're not going to tell me that you don't know what you're eating. Okay? You're not going to tell me you don't know what you're being injected with. You don't know what you're drinking. As an athlete, as a sports person. So that's the first thing. Secondly is that you cannot plan to be ignorant about it. Yeah. You cannot plan to be ignorant and ignorant about it. But basically, generally under law, ignorance is no defense. Yeah. And
Oh,
under the law, the organization publicizes the substances and they're even categorized all the time. So let's cannot say that I am illiterate, I don't know. That's not their fault. Okay. That's not their fault. You still be at fault. Even if you may be at fault, you still, as a law, as a principle, and a strict liability, you still be liable for it. And
yeah.
I'm trying to find the best way to be able to explain this in terms of doping. I'm trying to find the best way to explain this, but I'm not getting it. But the
Is
best
it?
thing that I can explain it is that you'll still be liable. Yeah, because you're responsible for what enters your mouth, what enters your
Yeah.
body, whether it is through injection, whether it is through what. So you cannot come and say that I'm not guilty. Yeah. So basically in simple terms, it's just those two principles that I would put out for a simple understanding and
Yeah.
yeah.
That's 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 quite tough and harsh for sportsmen to operate under. But I also guess maybe it's also intended to create an expectation from them that proactively they should know everything about every single thing they consume. Right. And I'm just trying to imagine if that responsibility was placed on me, right? Having to analyze every single thing I'm eating, to know every single element of it, to make sure that it doesn't have anything that has the capacity to induce any doping effect. That's a really high bar to live up to. And it's really tough for these guys.
But you see, the thing is this. See, some things we're not. The thing is, they do understand that you're not going to have knowledge about everything. You're not going to
Yeah.
be sure that this just that I'm taking is not going to increase my performance or is not going to
Yeah.
increase this of prohibited. These levels of almost that prohibited. Yeah, they do appreciate that. But also, doping is not just as simple as taking juice. You understand?
Yeah.
That is why liability is not as easy as just getting a glass of water and taking it and you're like, oh, my testosterone levels will go up. No.
Yeah.
It's by the time you're found to be doping, there has to be something. There has to be something that you've done. It is and you see it's not just anything that enhances performance. Yeah. And if there are even any fruits that enhance performance, they will outline it in their on their sites and they tell you these amounts of fruits. If you take, for example, too much oranges or too much mangoes or too much of anything, your levels of testosterone or whichever thing they're trying to find are going to increase to this and it's a prohibited thing. So they're going to
Oh,
let you know. But like I said, doping is not something I just that's why when I was giving you a brief history, that's why I told you that not everybody the Greeks, not everybody could actually be able to take those substances I have taken because
yeah.
finding them was not it. Then when the doctor has found them, they'll still charge you heavily for it because it is hard to find. And then also because you have to take it in a restrictive measure because also too much of it will just make everything out of proportion and it will not benefit you anymore. So
Yeah.
doping is not just something you wake up and easily do. You understand? Because
Yeah.
there is injections, things, there is drinks and everything. So by the time you're found doping, that means you're actually doing it. You are actually
Oh,
doing it. Most of the times, I think sometimes it's unintentional, like in Pogba's case, his supplements. It wasn't, they were just giving him supplements for whichever condition had, which
yeah.
ideas, I mean, which details we don't have as of now. But that is, you still go to it to take it if it's not intentional, if it's not intentional. So there is nothing
Yeah.
like, I didn't know. No, my juice was, no, they'll still test that it took if that is the case. But still, how would juice have DNA? How? Like, how? How? You understand?
Yeah.
So, it's, it's something that it's a very interesting aspect that is something athletes have to put in effort to understand and let's managers need to also understand that people that are managing have an idea about it. Because I'm not going to wake up and say I'm from Benin State. They don't care. They'll still bring for people speak and explain to them. So I don't even know how they speak French. And then you start explaining, huh? The list is actually in all languages that you can understand. Yeah, that's the national doping organization. They can be able to transcribe for you to the, I mean to transcribe for it to translate. to the language that you can ask. So they've actually effort to make sure that there is excuse. That's why there is strict liability. Yeah.
That's fascinating as well. Um, there's a question I've been meaning to ask, right? These these anti-doping tests are random, right? And I was wondering what happens if a player misses a test. And the source of this question is Rio Ferdinand's issue when he recently spoke about it. He says he never doped. In fact, he subjected himself to several tests and there was no doping substances found. Yet he was given an 8-month ban for, according to his account, forgetting to take a test. But basically, he missed the test. He didn't take the test. He was found to not have had any substance in his body dating back to a year because they did a subjective test on his hair. But still, he was given a ban. And I'm like, I'm finding ridiculous applications of, not ridiculous, but shocking applications of law by exploring this aspect of sports. Because first, it's strict liability. And then second, it's like, yeah, you don't have any drug up substance, but you missed the test. So 8 months ban. Why those reactions? Is it just a harsh bar to compel people to not miss the test?
So the thing is this: the regulations are very quite clear. They are crystal clear. I already told you, ignorance is no defense. So the next point is that the regulations are very clear. For missing a doping test, you'll be found guilty of doping. Toby Amushan was found guilty of doping towards the Budapest Athletics. And the thing is, the times on calling her in for doping, she was supposed to have appeared by that time. But luckily, I didn't critically follow the case, but they were telling her at the time they called in, she wasn't there. She was claiming that she was there. You understand? The reason why that is like that, if you're clean, why can't you come and do test tube? In simple terms.
Yeah.
Why can't you? It's more like you a traffic officer road and they're giving a advisor to inhale to see if you have alcohol because they're saying you're speeding. I like both. I'm not going to inhale. I'm not going to inhale into that advisor. And you go and say that you've not taken any amount of alcohol. It doesn't make sense logically. You understand? So the whole idea is that you cannot miss a test because the whole idea why they're trying to run the test is to try and not only be competing fairly. Secondly, is that to make sure that you don't even try or think about doping. And the other that you cannot miss it. Because if you miss it, it's implicitly and explicitly makes them believe that you do. Once if they don't know you very well, but still not, I believe they are cautious to be. I think there is an iota that is making me he's stopping. So the whole is that you're found guilty of doping because they don't have any substance to say that you're not doping. They don't have anything to say that you're not doping. So I don't know if this would be the best way for me to put it, but it's more like you're guilty and then you be proven innocent if you taste it. You understand? So basically,
Okay.
bad cases, people have suffered for those consequences. I mean, suffered because of that. Rio Ferdinand, that was the whole business. That was the whole business. There was no other thing. He just missed his doping test and he got his 8 months ban. And even so, he was going to be banned for 12 months just because I didn't critically follow up the case to see how it ended. But she had already received her ban. There were just few days to the Budapest Athletics and she was not understanding anything. But the whole idea is that yourself as an athlete, you're supposed to know was they've called me up for doping, I should go. okay, I shouldn't
Yeah.
say this and this. If I am unable um to run the test, for example, they can come to do the test Muslims are fasting. That means they'll have to take water if you have to give a urine sample. And they'll take that water. Unfortunately. Sometimes I think now because trying to be more thoughtful, more logical, they'll not necessarily come when you fast in a fasting period or something. Yeah, that's what happens. But also to make it simpler, is not like in school. If you attended a mixed in a single school and in a school as like an all girls school, there's a time they'll call everybody for pregnancy tests. So there, why are you not there? That's the idea. Why are you not there? And also say that in simple terms, you're guilty and it's more like you're innocent until proven guilty by hands until you're proven innocent.
Yeah.
If
Wow.
yeah, so other missing and the rules are very clear about it. So you cannot
Yeah.
start saying, I didn't know, I just strict liability comes in. I didn't know. That's not an excuse. For God,
Yeah.
no matter what, there's still education. And I'm not an athlete, believe they actually give you enough it's just come for the doping. Unless you, for example, you don't still you'll be given.
Yeah. I mean, the statement that sums it up, that makes all this make sense to me now, is what you said about you are guilty until proven innocent. Because in my mind, like in the world of law, we all know you are innocent until proven guilty. So I'm like, strict liability doesn't make sense. Like all these rigidity around doping seems to be fishy or too extreme. But then when you put it that way, that it's actually the reverse, probably in the world of sports, that it's more of you are by default guilty. You are the one who has the burden to prove your innocence. And so by escaping any of these tests or by failing any of these steps along the way, you are already guilty and you failed the innocence test. And so that makes a lot more sense in terms of how these things happen. In wrapping up the conversation on Pogba, though, I wanted to ask, what would this mean for his future in terms of, obviously, we know he's going to start training in January. He's going to there are conversations about trying to find a solution with Juventus. But are there any legal implications for teams that are going to be signing him? Is there any legal implications for him who is now going to be looking for different teams based on the rulings from this case?
Well, firstly is that he has a ban. Everyone in the world knows they cannot sign him, they cannot use him for anything. That has an impact um on his career in terms of, you know, things like sports. You have to keep on practicing to make yourself better. You have to keep on playing to make yourself better. And if you're old and you're not practicing enough or having practice that you need, it's definitely going to affect your career. So his market value is going to reduce. It already started reducing the day you put that ban. So which means career ways, for him to get a good club to play for, they take a leap of faith to sign him. To understand? Because they're not sure about how he's going to perform. And yeah. Secondly, is that the whole thing is about your integrity. Like your name. Your name has been tainted. Understand? And it's just that his doctor was at fault and he still had to pay something. Is tainted in a way that I believe you cannot be able to get the full trust of the people that you're going to work for or going to work with in the future. Even if your ban has reduced. You understand? Even if your ban has been reduced. I don't believe you're going to get the full trust. So it's always going to be a 1% or a 2%, whichever percentage, which means that you're going to have to work times 10 to get that kind of trust with the people that you're working with. or you're working for in that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
those are one of the things that he's facing. But besides that, I feel like it's just making his time to retire. If he had if for example this ban at an age of like 24, it didn't have a great sporting impact on him in terms of his value, in terms of how because he still has the years, he still has the age. But given I can't recall his 30 something. So 18 months is a full year and 6 months. So
Yeah.
all that years, you've not stepped on pitch, you've not played anything. Sporting wise, even if you get a club, you not play to the capabilities that you have, or you expect yourself to be, you not be playing to expectations that you have, or the expectations of other people. So that means you have to retire faster.
Yeah.
So it's like the career in two halves. Like they've cut your career by half. Yeah. That's why like I wrote a news later about this when he was found guilty of doping by the Italian agency. And I say that even if he was reduced, for as long as it is something that is not below 12 months, look at his career. Tap, tap, tap. So if he would have played for his national team for a longer time, he will not be able to play for it. And I think it's that they'll not throw him away. You understand? They'll
Yeah.
not throw him away. They'll not throw him away. But he'll be sitting on the bench. So of what use is it for you to enter a club and you're seated on the bench most of the times, or for at least 45 minutes? That's half a match.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
At the end of the that's saying that you actually need to retire to give opportunity to everyone else to play, and which is a good thing. But looking at the circumstances that lead to that, it's not a good thing. So ideally, it affects his sporting capabilities, his career, his name, and given that he's a person that has been in the media for, oh my goodness, different kinds of stories, this is just not the best he can get.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's not the best thing that I can add to his name. So really, yeah, in terms of his career, that is how he gets affected and his sport and everything. But I'm glad that I actually put up the fight. I'm glad that he put up the fight, because if I didn't put up the fight, that means he would just accept the ban and go back to village. And because by the time 4 years finished, there will be nothing. Honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and that means there's chance I will still be able to play. And in regards to his contract with Juventus, as it stands right now, there's supposed to be talks between him and the club to see, because his contract, I think, had a year and a half. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's action about that to see if they're still going to keep him, or if they are going to let him to be a free agent. And as of now,
Yeah.
the talks are about him being you have to find a club to sign him. So yeah, and in terms of the legal and all, I'll just refer to the case of Rio Ferdinand. The time they gave him that 8 months ban, while they awaited the trial process to end and everything with the football association, the anti-doping agency of the football association, ManU kept on they kept on putting him on the team sheets of the matches until they came out. Now, in today's time, you cannot do that because
Yeah.
you'll be summed up. And
Oh.
the fact that the person has not been proven innocent means that you're trying to have an unfair advantage against the people you're competing with. So, in that regard, you'll also carry the burden of the person that was found guilty. You'll also have your own case to answer. So that means that in finance time, there was a lot of controversies with the FA between FA and ManU. So it was a lot, but they kept on doing that. Unfortunately for them, when Rio was found guilty, they dropped and they couldn't even sign him. They couldn't play him again. So it was
Yeah.
quite unfair. So clubs actually pay. They suffer, especially if you're the only great player that they have. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're going to that's when I see that and that's how people be like, that's how they want to like kick you out of the club because of giving them financial loss, even sporting wise. Because if you, for example, are only center back they have, they are going to pay for it. You understand? So
Yeah. That's interesting, the way in which you talk about how this might affect his future as well. There are two final questions I have. I mean, this brings us to the end of the Paul Pogba discussion because I think this has been very educative, both for myself and I'm sure the audience would enjoy this as well. But recently we saw Nigeria and Libya, some brouhaha. Nigerian national team had to go back home because they said Libya treated them terribly. Libya said Nigeria started the fight. It's like two kids whose parents are not at home, who are fighting left, right, center. CAF, who is the parent, comes in and all they do is release a statement and says, we don't like this, but we'll try and deal with it. I mean, what's your take on it? Because it seems it's getting too far with the way in which things went with the Nigeria team in Libya.
so firstly, there is need to understand very short. Okay. What happened is Libya, there is going to be AFCON in Morocco next year.
Yeah.
And that's COVID series. That's why we're going to have another one. And then shortly after that, there's going to be one in East Africa, something like that. So these guys are playing qualifiers for the AFCON next year in Morocco.
Yeah.
And the first leg is taking place in Nigeria, specifically in Uyo State. So I think I'm getting it right. I can't remember. Yeah, it is that state. So the match is happening in Uyo State, and Libya is flying in for the match. If they are good, if they plan very well, the associations, they should be able to arrive within 4 days. So there is enough time to organize and everything for the team to feel comfortable and be ready to play. Libya, LFF, that the Libyan Football Federation, sends that team to Nigeria, and they're going to land. Ideally, they should have landed in Uyo State, but they instead landed in River State.
Okay.
Oh, when they landed there, it's not necessarily that it was the Nigerian Football Federation's fault. No. The Libyan Federation communicated that they'll not be landing in New York, but rather they'll be landing in Port Harcourt.
Okay.
2 hours. 2 hours. 2 hours. They had the whole time to communicate that kind of thing. So they decided that they're going to be landing. And within 2 hours, you cannot possibly make all the arrangements to make sure that these people land, they are comfortable and everything. But regardless, these people did not even have any maltreatment. They didn't.
Yeah.
So they play the leg, they lose the game, they go back to their country. And on 13, they were supposed to 15 on Tuesday. They were supposed to play a match on Tuesday. And the match was supposed to take place in Benghazi. But what happened is the Super Eagles leaves Kano State for Benghazi, and it's supposed to be 3 flights. While they're almost landing, their pilot is diverted and told to go and land in a completely different place. It takes them another 1.5 hours to land in that place. The place is I can't remember I can't properly pronounce the airport. But it's an airport that is deserted, an airport that doesn't even have personnel at the time of landing, because they were now landing past 6:30 p.m. West African time. So basically, it's more like it was not a SAT theater, if I'm going to put it in medical ways. So that's what happens. When they land at the airport, firstly, the airports, they're maltreated. No food, no water, internet is something that is very hard to have. There is no person from LSF. And then sadly is that in the whole process of the things, because this Super Eagles, it's good that they went with the General Secretary and also a minister. I think a minister or senator. And then when they're there, it comes to the knowledge that the government, in fact, has a hand in it because they're the ones who can they're the only ones that can decide to divert the flights. The
Yeah.
federation itself, that they don't have authority to do that. So while they're at the airport, they're not given anything to drink, nothing to sleep. They're not allowed to sleep in the hotels around the place. Only the Tunisian was allowed. Even his other staff. And the Tunisian was just a pilot. So his other staff had nowhere to sleep. Nothing. And the saddest bit is that they sent them some vans to come and pick them up. The vans were not even ready to go. They kept on telling them a minute, a minute. But knowing the political state of Libya, you cannot travel by road. That is very
Yeah.
risky, especially right now. And
Yeah.
you know what? Kinds of religious conflicts and everything. So you can't even bear risking it. And then the sad bit is that to wind up the whole saga is that there was even somebody recorded to record while are being disgraced. Like as if to publicize it. This is how we're treating these people.
Oh.
They they tried everything and Captain Just a Kong kept on updating. So these people are lucky that it's the power of social media. Because
Yeah.
should be knowing African football, CIF was going to just leave it and nothing would be done. But the more they treated, the more we knew about and pressurized. Now, CFA, the more you target, now it's in the limelight because Sky Sports News took it up as a developing story. Even up to now, it's not a developing story. We're now like, you can imagine the whole continent. This is the best that we can showcase. Like, that's
Yeah.
the best the captain showcase. So they tag them that like we cannot do this and like this cannot happen. Like we cannot come to play football and these are treating us. We're not even sure that you're going to give us food that is poison free because you've treated us like this.
Yeah.
How about the water that you're going to drink? You can so that is what happened. And CAF has had a task to respond and to respond in an emergency manner because that was an emergency. And before they even left Libya, they had decided on the way to play that match. However, under the CAF regulations, there is article I think 148 of the
Yeah.
disciplinary code. If you don't play match, you're going to pay fine, depends on what they did, and so many consequences. However, 150 says that anyone that is responsible for organizing a match should make sure that everything okay, to put it in simple terms, should make sure that everything is in place and there is enough security for the match to take place and everything. You understand?
Yeah.
So ideally, with all these things, these few regulations that I've given you, CAF was supposed to respond in a way that they're going to address that issue. You understand? To address it effectively in an emergency manner.
Yeah.
CAF it's best by telling us they're actually going to open up an investigation through their disciplinary tribunal. And the whole idea, amidst all this that has happened, you now want to open up an investigation after 15 hours of people in an empty airport, no water, no food. Like, who does that? You understand?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, as Victor Boniface, Trust Ekong, like different players on the Super Eagles are playing for other they're playing for international clubs and domestic leagues. So
Yeah.
these people the clubs are now getting concerned about their players because the guys who play and come back and play here because Saturday
Yeah.
domestic leagues are resuming.
Yeah.
So name like this. And the best thing that they can do at that point, and not to even condemn, to fully condemn and give them at least interim consequences. You understand?
Yeah.
The best thing we are going to investigate. Investigation. Now, for an investigation to take place, there has to be logistics, there has to be evidence, there has to be what so very decent things. You understand? So
Yeah.
that is well, by that time, I'm very sure AFCON in Morocco would have kicked off. So
Yeah.
what's the point? You understand? So for
Yeah.
me, if that it's a good thing that Super Eagles publicize this on social media and use social media to their best to their benefit. And then it got CAF answerable. Because me, I'm being very honest here. I don't trust CAF to address the issue as fast as possible. But I really hope they do. Because if they don't do that, it's going to be a trend. And the sad bit of it is that LMCS came up and said, you know what? We also landed in Nigeria and they actually treated us like this. What's
Yeah.
LMX? Because they said that treated us like this, but will not say anything. Just like Hong said, there's nothing that actually happened. What happened is they arrived. Yes, there was no team to welcome them and do everything that they needed to do in terms of maybe some logistics that they needed to do. But the whole thing is, it's actually of recent. I'll get on to know that it's not even the Nigerian government that's diverted them from landing in Rio to Port Harcourt. No,
Yeah.
it's that communicated that we're not going to land in Rio. No one stopped them. They had all the papers, everything wasn't set. But they said, no, we're going to land in Port Harcourt. You that is not the owner of the country, you're going to the country. They've told you this to land there because the match is going to take in this place for you. Like, no, we're going to land somewhere. So, and then when they cannot work within that shortest time to come and make pleasantries and whatever kind of situation, whatever things are supposed to do, you now fault them. It's not, so they can't give that kind of excuse. So and then they also go on statement that like they're going to take legal steps against the Nigerian Football Federation. They say that it's really I feel like it's really really lame for them to start arguing like that. They This just proves that while they kept quiet and when they landed at Port Harcourt, they didn't even have maltreatment. That's the thing. That's the thing. Because here, the whole idea is about the maltreatment, the security of the players. They didn't have those issues. But
Yeah.
the fact that they landed there, they said they're going to make sure that Nigeria faces the consequences. I'm not being biased, but to be very honest, CAF needs to penalize or to make Libya face the consequences of what they did, especially
Yeah.
fact idea of the political atmosphere. You understand?
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
regulation, there's no mitigating factor about that. Because if the place is not secure, people are not going to be able to play. I mean, we've seen matches being cancelled because the atmosphere outside the stadium is not safe. So for you, a whole country is not secure, and you again start treating the footballers like this. It's quite not fair. So for me, that's I think I really want CAF to make sure that consequences are faced. Yeah, because if that doesn't happen, knowing Africans, this is going to be a trend, a very big trend. I mean, even local clubs are going to be doing this, and their federations are not going to be able to do anything about it. So I
Yeah.
think it's very CAF does that. And besides that, I think there is need for CAF to open their eyes and be, I don't even know the best word that I can use, but you cannot be allowing a country that is not politically stable to
Yeah.
host
'Cause I wanted
a
to chip in a
okay.
point on that like first of all, I think it's a massive failure on CAF to maybe allow CAF regulated matches to go on under such heightened political situations because it's so unpredictable what would happen next. And regardless of where in the country it is, it's much more unpredictable, let alone the kind of things that happened when Nigeria went there. So I'm really looking forward to CAF actually being much more strict and firm. If this is the part where I would say that they should talk about strict liability, this part of the part I need strict liability at, right? But they should make sure that these guys are punished for the kind of insecurities that they cause. But yeah,
But the thing is, I think you're right, ideally, because it's like telling somebody to go and play a match in Somalia just because a
yeah,
certain town in it is a
yeah,
bit secure. It doesn't, you understand? It's only secure for the people who are there because they know how to do everything. You
yeah,
get, but because of the uncertainty around the whole, you cannot allow that to happen. So CAF really needs to take things into their hands and solve this. And the good news is that everybody's eyes is upon them, so they have to make sure that they act very well because clubs
yeah,
are getting worried that thing. And if nothing is done, this is going to be a trend and it's a very bizarre situation if
yeah.
if
Final question.
was
Final
concerned.
question.
And In my own
Which,
opinion, pardon?
which EPL team do you support?
Which
English Premier League do you support?
I don't
Just
support.
please. Oh, Paula, mention the team's name. I just have one question for
I-
you about the team.
No, I'm not supporting anybody. But in
Oh,
this case, seeing how the actually went out, I think I would support Nigeria. Yeah, for quitting that game. But in case CAF doesn't want to take a strong stand, they can still give some few consequences to next because they failed to stand. I really think that Libya needs to face consequences. Of course, only then can they be able to plan. And unfortunately for them, I feel like maybe one of the things that would be looked at is pulling out of AFCON. What- Nobody cares because I mean, once they pull out, they're giving opportunity for other countries to now have a space where they can fix and be able to play on it and it. So it is upon them to now use that upstairs.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been a fascinating conversation with you from Pogba's issue to this CAF situation. But the question I was asking you earlier, it wasn't about the two teams. I was asking you which English Premier League team do you support?
I beg your pardon.
Just quick, which EPL team? Is it Manchester United? Is it Chelsea? Is it Arsenal? Is it Liverpool? Is it Tottenham? I just want to know which team do you support? Because I have a question for you. That's why I need to know.
Oh my. Well, I'm a Ghana.
What? You are a Gunner, so you're an Arsenal fan. Okay,
Yes.
a very simple question. A very simple question for you, right? I had a discussion with
I-
Erasmus. And he said he's a Chelsea fan. I asked him, Chelsea, between where Arsenal finished last season and where Manchester United finished last season, Manchester United were 8th and they won, I think, the FA Cup, right? Arsenal were 2nd. They gave Manchester City a run for their money until the last day. Which position would Chelsea fans wish that they were in? Erasmus said Chelsea fans would wish that they were United and won a trophy than to be Arsenal and not have a trophy. So how do you feel as an Arsenal fan after playing all the games and all the beautiful football and not having the trophies?
See, I don't have a very good. Of course, truth be told, you feel bad. Yes, you feel bad. But for the last receipt, is the
No.
trust content has always been Arsenal, Man City.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
And
been
you've not
clear.
won.
But I'm still coming. I'm still coming. And for me, I would really relate it to. Yeah, I feel bad, but I would really relate it to Invincibles. The time Arsenal was invincible. Yeah, I think
Okay.
I would relate it to that because you're not losing, but at least even if you're not winning, you're not losing. You understand? The greater pain is being at the pit of the table. Yeah.
But
So
they won it. Anyway, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the episode. It's been a really nice conversation with you. I'm sure people would love this episode. Hopefully we can catch up sometime again on another discussion on the beer panel. Thank you to everyone who has listened to this episode to this point. Leave your thoughts, leave your comments on Pogba's situation, especially on CAF and the way in which they are handling Nigeria, Libya situations as well. But also, much more importantly, do you think Arteta and his Arsenal Gunners have bullets enough to shoot down Pep Guardiola's team to win the EPL trophy? Maybe they can, maybe they can't, but let's see what happens. Thanks and see you on the next episode. Bye, guys.
thank you.